Hello, I'm Jason Alder. Welcome to this video lesson. I'm going to be discussing some advanced rhythmical techniques, and these techniques come from Carnatic music, which is the classical music of South India. And Carnatic music is much more rhythmically complex than what we have in Western music. And part of that is because their approach to rhythm is quite different from ours. So these techniques I'm going to discuss have been developed by Raphael Reina, who just published this book a couple weeks ago, Applying Carnatic Rhythmical Techniques to Western Music, on Ashgate Publishing. I studied this as a course with Raphael for about 7 years at the Conservatory of Amsterdam, and this book covers a 5-year program to really understand and get in depth with everything and all the material in here. But that's much more than what I want to discuss in these video lessons. But what I do want to do is just take what I feel are some of the most practical techniques and elements from this approach and how it can be applied to complex Western music. So things such as odd subdivisions of a beat like quintuplets and septuplets, odd meters like 5/8, 7/8, 13/8, even more complex like 18/16. Polymeters, polypulses, polyrhythms, tuplets and ratio tuplets and embedded tuplets and irrational rhythms, things that we might see in the music of Xenakis or Ligeti or Brian Ferneyhough in the contemporary classical world, or in contemporary jazz from Dave Holland and Steve Coleman, Weather Report, Vijay Ayer. Also in folk music from the Balkans and Africa, and in electronic music even from Aphex Twin, Squarepusher, Venetian Snares, Autechre, and even in math metal such as Tool, Coalesce, Meshuggah, Dillenger Escape Plan. So by really practicing and mastering this method, all of this music that many people find very difficult to understand rhythmically and aren't very comfortable with, becomes much easier to understand and play after applying this Carnatic approach to them. So I'll spend a few lessons just kind of demonstrating the fundamentals of the approach and how to use them, and then later I want to take it to a practical level and take some actual pieces and analyze them and show how applying these Carnatic techniques makes it much easier to understand and perform them correctly. So this first lesson I'm going to focus on subdivisions of a beat. So most Western music is based on 2s and 3s. So 8th notes and 16th notes and triplets. Carnatic music, however, uses all of the subdivisions of a beat, so including the odd ones like 5, 7, and 9. So this first lesson, I'm going to be discussing the Carnatic approach to beat subdivision. So I just want to talk about some of the vocabulary that we'll be using, because I'll be using the Indian terms, which are different from Western music. It's not essential that you memorize all of these in order to understand the method, but it will be helpful because these are the terms that I'll be using. So I'll repeat them in context as we go through the lessons also, so that you'll become familiarized with them. The first of these terms is Gati, and a Gati is the name for a grouping of subdivisions of a beat. So in a Western context, we call a 3-note subdivision of a beat a triplet. In Carnatic music, this is called tisha. So tisha is the name of the Gati. So if I were to say that the music uses the tisha Gati, it means that it's in triplets. Now, the unit of subdivision of a Gati is called a matra. So there are 3 matras in a triplet, or 3 matras in the Gati tisha. And when we count this Gati, it's counted using the syllables ta, ki, da. So again, the name of the Gati is tisha. There are 3 matras in the Gati tisha, and those 3 matras are counted ta, ki, da. So 4 matras in a beat, what Western music calls 16th notes, is the Gati chatusha. And chatusha is counted ta, ka, di, mi. 5 matras in a beat, or quintuplets, is the Gati kanda, and is counted ta, ka, gi, na tone. 7 matras in a beat, or septuplets, is the Gati mishra, and can be counted in different ways, but for now we'll just use ta, ka, di, mi, ta, ki, ta. And the last Gati is Sankirna, which is nonuplets, or 9 matras. And it can also be counted in different ways, but for now we'll use ta, ka, di, mi, ta, ka, gi, na tone. And Sankirna is also a special case in Carnatic music, so I'm mentioning it now, but we won't be using it consistently throughout these lessons. So you might now be asking about some of the missing numbers like 6 and 8. Well, a sextuplet is twice as fast as a triplet, so 3 times 2. So we call that tisha second speed. So tisha is 3 matras, and twice as fast, times 2, second speed. So 6 matras in a beat is tisha second speed. And again, this can be counted in different ways, but for now we'll use taka, di, mi, taka. And we have the same process for 8 matras, or 30-second notes. So 30-second notes are twice as fast as 16th notes. So chatusha second speed. And we count that taka, di, mi, taka, janu. And then the last one is 2 matras in a beat, what we would call 8th notes. So this is half the speed of 16th notes. So chatusha half speed. And technically that has a different name in Carnatic music, but we'll discuss that later in later lessons. So 8th notes, we would count ta, ka. So now I'll demonstrate counting each of the gatis. And what's most important here is that we really make sure that each matra is equally spaced within the gati. So I'll begin at a slow metronome marking, just to really be sure that when I get to the higher gatis, it doesn't become uncontrolled or sloppy. So I'll start this now at 50. And I recommend that you practice these at a tempo between 40 and 60. And keep repeating the gati over and over until you're really sure that you're keeping it consistent and that every matra is staying exactly in tempo. So starting at tisha. Ta-ki-te, 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 ta. Chatusha. Taka-di-mi, 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 ta. Kanda. Taka-gi-nut-tone, 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 ta. Tisha second speed. Taka-di-mi, taka, taka-di-mi, taka, taka-di-mi, taka, taka-di-mi, taka, ta. Misha. Taka-di-mi, taka-ta, taka-di-mi, taka-ta, taka-di-mi, taka-ta, taka-di-mi, taka-ta, ta. Chatusha second speed. Taka-di-mi, taka-janu, taka-di-mi, taka-janu, taka-di-mi, taka-janu, ta. In Sankirna. Taka-di-mi, taka-gina-ton, taka-di-mi, taka-gina-ton, taka-di-mi, taka-gina-ton, taka-di-mi, taka-gina-ton, ta. So once you've mastered each of the gatis on its own, then you should practice switching between them and really focus on feeling the difference between neighboring gatis, such as tisha second speed and misha, and just really feel what that difference between a subdivision of 6 and a subdivision of 7 feels like. So I'll demonstrate a couple exercises now, but you can also write your own, or even better, just turn on a metronome and improvise switching between various gatis, and always make sure that you're really focusing on keeping the matra speed of each gati very precise and exactly in tempo and even. So in this exercise, I'll first build it up with one beat in between, and then bring them down all in succession. And you could also do this exercise in reverse. Ta, ta, ka, ta. Ta-ki-ta, ta. Taka-di-mi, ta. Taka-gi-nut-ton, ta. Taka-di-mi, taka-ta. Taka-di-mi, taka-ta-ta. Taka-di-mi, taka-janu, ta. Takadimi tataginaton, takadimi takajanu, takadimi takita takadimi taka takaginaton, takadimi takita taketa. And then you can move on to irregular switching. Takita, takaginaton, takadimi takata takadimi taka takadimi takaginaton, takadimi takajanu, takadimi taka takite, takadimi takaginaton, takadimi takata takadimi takata takite, takadimi taka takaginaton, takadimi takajanu, takadimi takadimi takata takaginaton, takite, takadimi takajanu ta. The next step is to practice using these gatis beyond just saying every matra and introducing longer notes within each grouping. And the first thing to do is identify each possible permutation of each gati. And we're already familiar with Tisha first speed and Chatusha in Western music, so I'll skip over those now. And here you can see all the possible permutations in Khanda. And this is taken from Raphael's book and doesn't have the 5 above each cell grouping, but just know that that's how these are intended. So each cell is a quintuplet figure. So these cells are every possible way that beats in Khanda could exist. And when I demonstrate each of these cells in Solkatu, you'll hear that the syllables I use now are a bit different than what we just learned. And that's because it's not fixed once we're actually singing the phrases, except downbeats should always be ta. And the most important thing is that they just roll off the tongue and flow well, and ideally start to create a musical language of their own. And hopefully after all the previous exercises, the different patterns will start to come more easily for you. So first you need to spend time just repeating each cell or beat over and over with a metronome until you're comfortable with it. And again, as always, being sure that you're staying perfectly in time. So you really need to feel that matra speed throughout, and especially as the note length gets longer. So be sure that you feel 2 matras on the eighth notes, and 3 matras on the dotted eighths, and 4 matras on the quarter notes. And as I demonstrate these cells, I'll also clap all 5 matras so that you can hear it. And you can also do this at first, or if you have someone to practice with, one can keep the matra throughout by repeating takagina tone, while the other practices the cell. But eventually you need to be to the point where you can just internalize that matra and that you don't need the external support. So I'll repeat each cell 4 times and move to the next, but when you're practicing, you should stay on each one for as long as you need to until it's stable. Takagina ton, takagina ton, takagina ton, takagina ton, ta, takita ta, takita ta, takita ta, takita ta dim, taka ta dim, taka ta dim, taka ta dim, taka taka dim, ketaka dim, ketaka dim, ketaka dim, ketakita dim, takita dim, takita dim, takita dim, ta, taka ta, taka ta, taka ta, taka ta dim, ketadim, 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 ketakadim, takadim, 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 tadim, ketadim, 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 ketakadim, takadim, 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 tadim, dim, tadim, dim, tadim, dim, tadim, dim, ta, keta, 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 ketadim, tadim, 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 ta, dim, 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 ta. And here are the permutations for Tisha second speed and Misha. So I won't demonstrate all of these now, but you should go through them with the same process and just repeat each cell over and over with the metronome until you're comfortable with them. And then once we have all the individual cells mastered, we can move on to putting them together in phrases. So then I'll just now demonstrate one in Khanda and one in Mishra. So here I have a phrase in Khanda, and this is written 4 beats to the bar, so I'll set my metronome on, accenting the 1 of every bar just to help make sure that we're staying in the right place. And before I begin the phrase, I'm going to give 4 beats of takagina tone, just to help really set that matra speed and help internalize it beforehand so that I'm able to keep it consistent throughout. taka gi nut tone, taka gi nut tone, taka gi nut tone, taka gi nut tone, taka gi nut tone ta, takita ta dim, taka dim, ka takita dim, ta dim, ka dim, ta dim, dim, ta, taka ta dim, ka dim, ta dim, ta, ka dim, ta, taka gi nut tone ta. So then we'll do the same thing with Misha. I'll count 4 times takadimi takata and then begin the phrase. Takadimi takata, takadimi takata, takadimi takata, takadimi takata, takite, katakadimi dim, takadim, kadim, takata ta dim, ta, takadim, ta dim, takata, takita takata dim, takite, taka, dimi, kataka, dimi, taka, takadimi ta, dim, takita ta. So, a quick review. We've learned about the different gatis, which are the names for the groupings of subdivisions of a beat. There are 5 gatis: Tishra, Chatushra, Kanda, Mishra, and Sankirna. And when the gati goes twice as fast, it's called double speed, and each gati is made up of matras. Now, by practicing each gati individually, you'll greatly increase the accuracy of your beat subdivision, as well as expand your ability to subdivide beats beyond just the standard 8th notes and 16th notes and triplets that we're used to in Western music. So keep it at a slow metronome marking, and once you're able to accurately perform each gati, then you can practice switching between them. And start with just 2 back and forth and build it up to more, and you can also just create your own exercises with it. Also practice every permutation of each gati so that you know exactly where each matra falls in any possible rhythmical instance. And then repeat each permutation cell until you can perform it accurately, and you can also do that with external support of clapping or with a partner saying every matra to help ensure that you're subdividing it correctly. Once you can do that, then you can start putting them together in phrases, and again, just keep repeating them until you're sure that you're able to perform it all correctly. If this seems difficult, it is at first. What I've just explained in this 20-minute lesson takes several weeks of pretty heavy study to start to feel comfortable with it. But don't get discouraged, just keep at it, and I promise that it will start to get easier if you just keep practicing it. So thank you for watching this video lesson. I hope it's been informative. Please stay tuned for the next lesson where I'll be discussing how to use the gatis that we learned today as a way to understand and perform ratio tuplets. So things like 4 against 3 or 5 against 3 or 7 against 5 or 9 against 4. I'll demonstrate a formula to use so that playing any ratio tuplet becomes very easy. If you have any questions, please just leave it in the comments. And as I mentioned before, in future lessons, I want to take this to a practical level and use it to actually analyze real pieces. So if you're working on something and you're unsure of the rhythm or not quite sure how to approach it, just let me know in the comments and I can take it into consideration as a possibility to use in a future lesson. And if you'd like to go more in depth with this material and this method and further, then I'll take it in video lessons. I'm also available for private lessons, either in person or via Skype, depending on your location. And if you're an educator yourself, I'm also available for workshops and masterclasses if you think that your students could benefit from learning this material, which I'm positive that they will. So if any of that interests you, then you can contact me through my website, jasonalder.com. So thank you, and until next time.